Hi, so welcome to lesson 7.3. This is where geometry gets kind of hard, not because it's necessarily difficult, but because it requires a bit of memorization and understanding why we classify things. So we classify triangles in two different ways. One, by using the angles. So we look at a triangle and we say, well, what do their angles look like? In the case of this triangle, where all of them are acute angles, we call it an acute triangle. And that's where they all have to be acute. Then there's an obtuse triangle, which means that one angle is obtuse. You can't have more than one angle be obtuse in a triangle because all the interior angles have to add up to 180. But I'm kind of giving away something that we're going to talk about later. So if there's one angle in a triangle that's obtuse, it's an obtuse triangle. A right triangle means that there's a right triangle in it. Or I'm sorry, a right triangle means that there's a right angle in it. An equiangular triangle looks on the surface like it's an acute triangle, but it's not. Equiangular means that all three of the angles are congruent. And congruent is the geometry way of saying that they're equal. They're not exactly equal, but it means that they're the same. So an equiangular means that all three angles have the same measurement, so they're congruent. If we classify the triangles using sides, so this is the angles, we classify them in two ways. One is the angles, and the other is the sides. If no sides are congruent, meaning they're the same, then it's a scalene triangle. Again, scalene is one of those words that you only hear in geometry, so it's kind of helpful to have these notes with you when you are trying to figure out what your triangles are. An isosceles triangle means that two sides are congruent. We use little hash marks to say that things are congruent. So if it has one hash mark, it means that it's congruent with a side that also has a single hash mark. You'll see polygons that have two hash marks, which means that those two are congruent with each other, and sometimes even up to three, depending upon how many sides your polygon has. An equilateral triangle has three congruent sides. So all the sides of the angles are the same. And it turns out that if it's equiangular, it's equilateral, and if it's equilateral, then it is equiangular. These two go together. Classifying triangles. So let's try this on our own. This triangle, we're going to classify it by its angles first. So classify it by its angles. There's a 40-degree angle, 25, and 115. It's this 115 degrees that makes it an obtuse triangle by the angles. And by the sides, since nobody has sides that are equal because there's no hash marks, it is scalene. It is a scalene triangle. This triangle has two angles that are the same and two sides that are the same or congruent. So we know by angles, and looking at it, none of those are right angles and none of them are obtuse. So this is an acute triangle. Acute. How do we spell acute again? AC, oh, I was right. A-C-U-T-E. So an acute triangle. By the sides, we have two sides that are the same. So two congruent sides, we know that it's an isosceles. I-S-O-S-C-E-L-E-S, isosceles. Okay? On your own, so pause me for a little bit and come back and see if you're right. Hi, welcome back. So this triangle has a, oops, did not mean to do that. This triangle has a right angle in it. So by the angles, we know that this is a right triangle. We know that also that it is isosceles because two sides are congruent. So by the sides, it is an isosceles triangle. This triangle has three congruent sides and three congruent angles. So we know that this has to be a equilateral and equiangular. Remember, they have to go together. So it's an equilateral, equiangular, equilateral triangle. Okay, let's see what page 2 has for us. So constructing a triangle using an angle measurements, I'm also going to go find a video on YouTube for you to show you how to do this. And same with constructing a triangle using side lengths. I'm going to go find those on YouTube for you. So thanks for listening.